So today, why am I hiding in the bushes? Well, not really hiding. I'm going all the way into the deep wilds of our farm to the back side of our house. In the recent freeze we had, it kind of put the finishing touches on a faucet we have here. It got colder, actually the coldest it's been since we moved to the Georgia area. Got down to about 10 degrees. We had our faucets covered, which I would recommend these or something similar. This one's a little old and beat up, but it still does its job of covering with insulation. It's just a standard faucet cover. You can pick these up probably at any home improvement or do-it-yourself store that it just hooks on. Show you here. Just hooks on onto the faucet like this, and then the foam covers over it. You may have to kind of work it on, and you make it as tight as you can, and then slide the latch over and it hooks on. And this protects against most basic freezes. Now in this case, normally it gets into the teens and 20s. It got just a few degrees colder this year, down to around 10 or so. So it wasn't quite enough, but this faucet was also old. It was nearly leaking as it was. So this winter just kind of put a finishing touch on it as far as getting down just cold enough to wear out the seal, just enough to where you might be able to see on the video that it is leaking slowly. So it is time to replace it. Now there are a couple different types of these, so you want to make sure that you get the type that matches. There can be what's just standard in the industry referred to as male or female connections on the inside, and they can also be either welded onto a pipe or screw on. So it's a matter of just making sure you get the right one to match. And yes, for those of you who have experience working, one thing you want to make sure you definitely do before you start unscrewing or disconnecting in any way, make sure the house water is off and the pressure is released. So in case you were holding your breath, seeing if I'm going to soak myself when I pull this off, sorry to disappoint, but I did think of that in advance. Now one other part to consider in this is these faucets do also come in two standard sizes, which is 3/4 inch and 1/2 inch. And in this case I was not able to check in advance because this one's old enough it wasn't even actually labeled. Now I don't know if all of them are labeled nowadays, but this one definitely was. It was a 3/4 inch. That was our best estimate on what this probably was in looking at it, so I got that. I did actually get a 1/2 inch as well, just in case. Didn't bring it out here because I was pretty sure this was the right one, but I at least had it here at the house in case I was mistaken. And next you want to do is make sure you clean this off, because you want to make sure you get a really good seal between these two. So I've got to go grab a rag and then the plumber's tape to put on there. Alright, got the rag to get this all cleaned off. As you can see, fortunately the freeze was not so bad that it got past the faucet. Just enough to ruin the seal on that. And this is what's usually referred to as plumber's tape. Go ahead and just wrap it around, make sure it's all clean and dry on the outside here. Now the direction you want to wrap is so that you make sure, the way to figure out is that once you wrap it around, in this part you can just kind of press it all down. Once you break it down, you want to make sure that loose part, when you screw the new one in, it's working with that. So I'm screwing this direction top to the right. You want to make sure that the tape is going around top to the right on the top, so that as you're screwing this in, you're pressing it further on, not peeling it. So you want to make sure it only strengthens the peel seal. And no, that was over twisted. I want to be careful not to over tighten it. It's already on there quite a bit, so it's going to have a good seal. Yes, these screws are a bit rusted, but they're still solid. It would be better to replace them, and I may come back and do that later. But these are going right back in on the same place. Yeah, see, that's pressing it in there. Bear in mind, as far as tightness, you don't want to over tighten these. That's not necessary. They are just holding it in place. They're not creating any kind of seal in this case, because the screw-on, as the screw-on attachment with the plumber's tape is making its own seal. This just ensures that everything stays in place. There you go. Yep, you can see that's about as tight as that's going to get. And we are on. This is in. So should you ever need to replace a faucet, and definitely if you own a home long enough, you will eventually have to replace one, because they will wear out, at least in the seal inside. And to avoid wasting a whole lot of water, you want to make sure that seal is replaced by just replacing the whole faucet head. That's all there is to it. And then we can just turn the water on, we'll test it, test the seal, and we're good to go from there. We have a new faucet. Okay, I'm back. I've turned on the water, and the first good sign is we see nothing coming out, which means we have a good seal around here. This seal, of course, is working as expected on a new faucet. So, simple test. Turn it on. And we have full water flow. And I don't even have to turn it off all the way, and it's stopped. Excellent sign of a new faucet. There we go. Quick fix, got it all changed over, and we have our new faucet on there with no leak. I want you to leave in the comments, let me know if you've had any experience like this, having to change out faucets, any tips, any tricks. Just to review a couple things to be aware of. The faucet itself, it can be male or female. Some are soldered, some are screw-on. Those are the main differences I've learned. And be aware that there are at least two standard sizes, 1/2 inch and 3/4. I have been told that the 3/4 is what most faucets are, but just be aware of those differences as you're looking for any part. And of course, make sure the water is off before you start to unscrew this. If it isn't, well, you just get your free shower. Then you have to go back and turn it off, but you probably wasted a lot of water in the meantime. Why don't you also be sure to like the video if you found it useful, and be sure and subscribe to see a lot more of what's going on our farm as well as the rest of life. Last step, of course, besides removing the tag, is since we are still in the winter time, we're past the coldest part, but there may still be another freeze. Go ahead and cover this back up. Whoops. That's one thing, you want to make sure this is latched when you put it on. Little heads up on that. You want to hook it in and then have it come off. The last step there is get this on. One little thing, seeing this padding is starting to come loose. You do want to make sure that's all in place. That is part of what helps insulate against the freeze. There you go. We're all set for the rest of winter. Because this one is a faucet I don't use a whole lot, but we want to protect it, make sure it's completely serviceable when we do need it.